There's a reason they call him King. Here's your look at the brand new Hiya toys, Kong Skull Island, Kong Exquisite Basic. Embark on an expedition to an uncharted island and discover the domain of Colossal Kong with the Hiya Exquisite Basic series. From Kong's Skull Island, the Exquisite Kong Basic stands just under 6 inches tall and faithfully replicates his appearance from the film. From Kong's intimidating gaze to the chest and battle scars, every detail is finely crafted, emphasizing the power of the mighty ruler of Skull Island. If you're planning to stop by the island, be sure to bring a boatload of bananas. Just before, of course, we get a closer look at the Kong Skull Island Exquisite Basic King Kong, I'd like to send out a big thank you first to the folks over at Hiya Toys that did provide this sample we could have a look at. It's strange that many of the online sites that show the pre-order of this guy actually show it with a release date of November 2024. If that's the case, we're looking at him really quite early. The figure, though, is going to stand about 6 inches in height, or Kong's Skull Island King Kong is going to be standing about 15 centimeters tall. Now, I did actually expect this figure to have the same size and build as the Godzilla vs. King Kong. That's not the case. As you can see, the two aren't sharing the same molds at all. You could probably look at them and say, okay, maybe like the forearms are the same, perhaps the biceps, the shoulders, but clearly proportionally, they're not the identical figures, which is kind of strange because you would think that they would have just simply used the Godzilla vs. Kong and just retooled a brand new head sculpt to incorporate one that looks a little bit more accurate to Kong Skull Island, but it's not the case. Instead, what we end up getting is a slightly shorter Kong. I just feel like he's maybe a little too short. And also as well, if you guys want to display him along with Godzilla, yeah, he again comes up a little bit short. I think if you really are looking to pair the two together in battle, I would more likely want to display this version of King Kong along with the King of the Monsters instead. Kong does pretty good for himself for accessories. The figure, if you include the knuckle-dragging hands that he has right now on the ends of his forearms, then the figure comes included with 4 pairs of interchangeable hands. We'll maybe look at those first. Other than, of course, the hands already on the ends of his forearms, the figure also has some large punching fist hands, good for punching skull crawlers. The figure as well comes included with a pair of relaxed hands. Those are nicely done as well. You can see with the fur on the end of it, while looking almost as if it's using the same coloring of the plastic that they molded it in, it looks like it's just slightly a little bit more brownish. Nice attention to detail. And the figure also as well, if you want to start swinging around rooted trees, the figure also comes included with gripping hands as well. The hands themselves are pretty soft and plastic, so it's going to make things quite easy if you want to have them holding the tree. Sliding all these extra hands out of the way, we're going to kind of keep these hands for right now in the frame. The figure also comes included with an interchangeable head sculpt. If you don't like the more neutral head that he has right now, wait, what? You want to see what he looks like with the tree? Okay. Figure comes included as well with a big giant tree. Although it would be giant for you, it wouldn't be as giant for Kong. You can see by the way the roots are at the end of this that he's just yanked this out from the ground. The actual roots themselves are nicely painted. They're all individually soft and plastic. The actual tree itself has some decent texturing to the actual bark, with all the remaining, what's left behind at least, of the limbs, the branches, all the things that go along with trees. I mean, Kong basically is just using this as a big swinging weapon by now. If you wanted to have him holding that, of course, you can't really do it with the hands that he has right now, so you're going to want to just pick the figure up, easily remove the knuckle-dragging hands. You want to see those, by the way? All right. Here's the hands themselves. Yeah, I do like these hands. The thing about it, though, is that with the way that the figure's articulated, he can't quite actually have his hands on the ground. It's like if you want to, for example, bring the figure down here, you can't really quite bring the legs. I mean, you can bring them forward like this. As you can see, it's like, well, it would be like me trying to touch my toes. You just can't pull it off. I mean, I guess you could kind of have the hands somewhat like this, but it isn't going to quite successfully pull off that knuckle-dragging look. Anyways, let's go ahead and replace the hand. Let's pull that one off that we've just finished removing. Let's go ahead and pop the new hand in place. If you're having, by the way, any hard times, I know I sound like a broken record whenever I say this, heat the hands in hot water. It's the easiest fix to ensure that they're going to plug in properly to the peg. And then we're going to go, of course, you know what? Let's just get the tree actually in his hand first. Might be the easiest, and then we'll just attach the hand after that. But basically, all you're just going to do is pry the plastic away, put the tree inside his hand. All these little parts that stick out from the remaining end of the tree, I mean, they do end up scraping a little bit when you're trying to put them in. Then we're going to go ahead and put the hand back onto the provided peg. There we go. And now Kong, if I can actually get the hand all on there. Maybe I really should have taken my own advice. There we go. You can actually have the figure holding the big giant tree in his hand, like a big swinging, is it Jose Canseco bat? Who had the Jose Canseco bat in, what was it, a TV series? Jose Canseco bat? Somebody can let me know down below in the comment section. But anyways, Kong can swing around like a bat. The last thing that the figure also comes included with is a screaming head portrait that if you were to say compare it with the one that we got from, let's grab the one here from Godzilla vs. Kong. I mean, again, like just looking at the size difference between the two. It's painted well, for its credit. It doesn't have as much the gray as perhaps the Godzilla vs. Kong version of him, but you can see like a very similar style of mold. The one thing I will say, though, is that while the eyes were very small on Godzilla's version of him, you can still quite make them out. Although with the smaller one, the one from Skull Island, it's a little harder to actually make out his peepers. They're there, but because they're so small, and because there's so much dark paint around it, they almost seem lost on the face. The teeth are nicely done. You can see they're yellow both on the top and the bottom rows of teeth, and tongue nicely painted in a lighter color of pink inside. I still think like the head sculpts on the Godzilla vs. Kong are perhaps a little more superior. Changing out the heads, though, by the way. Let's pick the figure up right now and show you guys what the defaulted head looks like when you get them out of the packaging. Kind of more just a neutral expression Kong. Looks good. Very shiny more in the face. I mean, that's probably one of the things that lead to the idea that it's a little harder to see, obviously, his eyes, because the face is a lot shinier. You can still make out his teeth, but this mouth, obviously, is going to be closed permanently shut. Nice sculpt on the side of his face, his tiny little ape ears there on the top. It's a nice head sculpt, but I feel like it maybe isn't as good, perhaps, as the Godzilla vs. Kong. Let's go ahead and remove the tree for all the work we spent getting it in there in the first place. To change out the head, it's just a case of popping the head off the ball joint, taking the new head that we want to use, and popping it in place. I'm sure probably one of the questions you are going to be asking me in a short bit, if you haven't already asked me now, is can you use the original Godzilla vs. Kong head sculpts? Well, you could, I suppose. It looks like they are using the same size of ball joint, but I mean, it would just look so out of place with the coloring and the size of the head. So you may want to just stick to the heads that go along with the apes. This one definitely is definitely more emotional looking Kong. And if I'm planning to put this on display along with the skull crawler, this is definitely the head sculpt I'm going to go with. As for the rest of the figure's body, he does have the notable scars there on the front of his chest. These haven't only just been painted, but they've actually been carved into the plastic. You can see there's a little lift on all of the lines here on Kong's body, and it really does look good. Again, it's all mostly a very dark color, but I wouldn't want to say it's a dark black. I think I'd be wrong to say that. It actually kind of comes across more like a really, really dark brown. It looks good, though, but I mean, again, like to compare the two, I feel like proportionally, they should have almost just used the exact same body and just given him a different head sculpt. Because I think there was nothing really wrong at all with the original Godzilla vs. Kong. Why not just use the exact same body? I mean, from a sculpting standpoint, the cost and course involved of having to retool a brand new mold, it just would have been easier. They already had the existing mold for King Kong versus Kong, Godzilla versus Kong, and then simply just, again, giving him a brand new head sculpt, and then included, of course, the tree attachment as well. Now, for the figure's articulation, if you already are familiar with that other Kong, then pretty much it goes with the territory of what we're going to be getting with this version. Kong's Skull Island Kong does have, again, that ball joint. Now, there's a ball joint here, basically with a post. So there's a ball joint here. There's a ball joint, yeah, right over here. So you get really between the two, you get decent enough articulation. I mean, the head only goes up that far. Problem with it, though, is obviously he's got a very large section on the back of his head that's going to prevent any bit of movement further back from this. The head does also rock back and forth as well. Technically, you could rotate the head all the way around. I don't know why you'd want to do that with a big giant gorilla. The arms do rotate also as well. He also has these socketed joints, which basically aren't even there as articulation. They're more there just to conceal the fact that you could see a peg if they weren't there. So they kind of give you this little bit of extra hide here, so you don't really see the peg the way that the arm is actually attached. They don't seem to serve much of a purpose that I can see, at least. They basically just cup around the joint, all the way around. Again, the arms do rotate all the way around. The figure does have a swivel in the bicep. The figure does have a double bend on the elbow. There's a hinge right here and a hinge right here, but you can only really get about that far of a bend with Kong's body. And then, of course, the hands do rotate also all the way around. You can hinge them back and forth. Upper torso is going to be on a very generous ball joint. No articulation further down by his tummy. Legs do hinge out. I did notice, though, on mine, this leg is a little on the looser side. This side isn't so bad, but this one leg, and you can also, by the way, you can drop the legs down too. So if you wanted to have Kong actually sitting down for a big giant snack, you can also do that as well. But these basically just pop back in place. Again, like this leg, a little on the looser side, not enough that it's going to give me any problems getting the figure to stand. The figure does have a double hinge on the knee. articulation here on the ankle, and also back and forth as well. He has no peg holes on the undersides of his feet, so if you thought for a second, hey, I could use a display stand that comes included with the Exquisite Minis, you can't. It's not going to let you. All in all, though, it's a good-looking Kong, but I feel like if I just get him to stand here, if you already have this Kong, I don't know if I would say it's worth the... I want to say upgrade, because essentially I know Skull Island's Kong is the newer figure, but I don't feel like if you already have this Kong would have been a fine stand-in for whether it be against the King of the Monsters, Godzilla, or you decided still to keep him on Skull Island. I think he was a fine Kong before, and still, again, I'm kind of puzzled as to why they didn't use just the same body for this figure to use it for Skull Island's Kong. I mean, you could say that maybe he's grown a little bit bigger in size. He was a little bit younger, obviously, on Skull Island, but enough to justify the size difference between the two. I'd rather just, again, had they used the original body and just changed out the head sculpt and called it a day. I can't believe it. I'm so very embarrassed. Not remembering a quote from the original classic 1990s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie, a Jose Canseco bat? Tell me you didn't pay money for this. You know, the thing I do like about Skull Island's Kong, even though he's a little shorter in stature, the details on the figure can't be lost. I mean, obviously, Hiya's never really let us down with any of the MonsterVerse figures that we've gotten. Whether you decide still to remain on Skull Island or you decide to move to the big city and battle a big giant lizard instead, I mean, the look of the figure is decent. He's got some decent level of articulation. You can't quite pull off the knuckle dragging look, so if that's one thing that you want to do with the figure, you might be a little bit let down. But the figure itself, again, is well sculpted, well painted, and he includes a pretty decent level of accessories. He has several different hands to work with, obviously an interchangeable head sculpt that I'm going to stick with right now, and of course a big giant swinging tree. The thing about it, though, is while I know there's obviously an age difference between Kong on Skull Island and then eventually when he battles the King of the Monsters, Godzilla, but for the age difference that it is, I still feel like the figure should have been a little bit taller than what he is. Now, obviously, if they wanted to still make him a little bit smaller, give some years so Kong can grow in size, I mean, that would have been fine, but maybe only just made him just a tad bit shorter. I don't think he should have been the size that he is, because again, if you plan to display him only on his own, it's not going to be noticeable. If you plan to display him with the skull crawler we've already gotten from Hiya, again, it may not be something you're going to notice right away. But the moment that you are a collector and you decide you want to put all your MonsterVerse figures together, the moment you decide to put this guy right alongside Godzilla vs. Kong, you're going to notice the shadow gets cast on this figure from the earlier Kong we got from before. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comment section. Do you agree? I know, again, there's a big year difference between the two movies, but do you feel like Kong should have been a little bit taller than what we actually got right here, or do you think he's of a decent size? Let me know down below in the comment section. Big thank you once again to the folks over at Hiya Toys that did provide the sample of the Skull Island Exquisite Basic King Kong figure that we could have a look at in this review. The figure, by the way, most of the online sites that have the pre-order still in November, which I feel like they're probably going to move that back a little bit. November of 2024 seems like it's a far enough ways away from where we are right now, but the figure is going to be sitting at around $50.99. So it's about a $51 figure. Not really bad for, again, the attention to detail that Hiya always delivers. If you guys did enjoy this video, I want to throw it a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, and you certainly do want to stick around for more, we'll have some more Hiya Toys reviews also coming your way, so make sure you're coming back here on a regular basis. If you do also want to go back and have a look at all the other things I've looked at from Hiya in the past, popping up at the very end of this video will also be a playlist covering off everything at all I've ever covered for Hiya Toys. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.